Hello everybody. Well, it's been a few interesting days and we're all very happy that Susie is now on the ship and probably getting into a strange routine of having clean sheets and warm showers and proper meals at a table or something. It's going to be quite an interesting story to hear how she goes heading back. She's actually going to Punta Arenas in Chile. And I think, I'm not sure, but anyway, I know she's going to Punta Arenas, and the ETA there is about the 12th of December, so she'll be off and home, plenty of time for Christmas and all the rest of it. We may not hear a lot more from Susie now. She signed off once she got on the ship, said I'm here, and now most of the media and stories will come through her campaign and DHL and so on, so keep an eye out on her own Facebook page. She'll probably ring us in a couple of days just to say g'day, but we're just happy that it's all worked out the way it is. Incredibly grateful for the crew of the ship. A lot of people are wondering about how it actually took place in the end. I think it was very similar to what happened, but realistically we don't know. We haven't spoken to the captain of the ship yet. I've just got his email address this morning, so or about an hour ago, so I will send him an email and thank them very much for all the efforts that they did, and Chile and all the rest of it. We've already done that. But what I believe would happen, and certainly by the look of the photo, Susie was talking about conditions dropping very quickly. It was probably around 3 metre seas. The wind was already back to 15 knots, and it may have got less again. And she's obviously on the hook, so the crane thing worked. I've got no idea whether she got her bags. There's no picture there of bags coming off, but I think she would have. The conditions may have allowed them to get a couple of bags off, so that's it. Big question everyone's been asking, was the boat scuttled, or is it adrift, or whatever it is? I don't really know. I haven't had confirmation, but certainly Susie and I had lengthy communications over the 2 days she was in distress, and the plan clearly was to scuttle the boat. There's no point in letting it drift. No one will ever be able to salvage it, and as she said to me, it would sink anyway because eventually the batteries would go flat, the bilge pumps would stop working, and the boat would sink because there was water coming into the boat. So it's got to be assumed that the boat will eventually sink. The tracker is still operational. It disconnected from the main ship's power when it was happening, so we were varying the rate of position reporting on the needs of the rendezvous with the ship. Now we've cut it back to 1 position report a day, which means it'll probably continue. The batteries were down to about 6% when she got off the boat, so it might continue for another 5, 6, 7 days, but we'd expect to see the signal stop very soon, probably even now, in the 24 hours. I was just about to do a live update on the tracker, but there's a server issue and I'm not sure what it is. The tracker's not there at the moment. We've checked on the app, and the app is down as well. That's what we're seeing here in France right now in the last 15-20 minutes. So when I've finished here, I'll get onto that and try and find out what's going on. So the tracker could well be down at the moment. I'm not sure. What I did see, I was on the tracker about half an hour ago and it was working, was interestingly Jean-Luc has pulled away a bit from Mark Slat's, and he's now about 1,150 miles distant, and both of them are sailing in reasonable conditions. Obviously Mark's not getting quite the weather he might have hoped for. Jean-Luc's doing pretty well, but I think you'll see in the future that'll change a bit. I think Jean-Luc's going to slow down when he gets to some headwinds, so that's happening. Uku's doing well. The weather there that I saw coming and what he's got now is reasonable, no storms. Istvan's a bit of a catch-22. He's up against the no-go zone, and he hasn't got favourable wind direction. Tapio's going over the corner, well clear the corner, still sailing east, so he's happy. You might have seen the live video on Facebook here about the goose barnacles on Captain Coconut. Quite impressive, but that sort of coverage of barnacles isn't anywhere near as bad as what Uku had, and also what Tapio had over his boat. They had patches where it was completely covered, so you can imagine the amount of drag that's causing, and we're all waiting with bated breath to see what's going on with Igor. He's likely to have a mass there, so it's a wonder that he might be sailing at all, which is really quite interesting. So Igor was looked like about another day and a half or so, frustrated with light winds. So they're all doing pretty well. So the rest of the fleet is settled. I will get to do a live update as soon as everything's stabilised again, and we'll be back into a normal routine with things going as best we can. So that's a bit of a quick overview, and now I've got a huge amount of questions, all sorts of things going on with Susie being recovered and everything. It really was fantastic, and it all went pretty well. We did actually release 2 minutes of audio from the very first phone call that we got from Susie when she told us she was in trouble. We'd already been informed about the EPIRB from UK Coast Guard, and then that passed on to Chile, so things were already happening, and then the phone rang. So obviously, as we described previously, Susie had put the EPIRB on and then got to work to save the boat, stop from sinking, cut rid of the rig, get rid of it all, and after she'd done that, she then made the effort to call us. The first couple of phone calls were indecipherable. We couldn't understand the garble. It was a bad line, there was a lot of wind noise and so on, but then we lost connections twice. It was very frustrating. It was really dramatic actually, because we were talking about holes in the hull and we couldn't work it out, and we're thinking, crikeys, you know. But then fortunately we got the clear message. Now we've already released that 2 minutes to media, so we might as well put it up. I'll probably put that up on Facebook. I'll work out a way, probably on the SoundCloud, maybe this afternoon in the next few hours or something, and you'll hear just 2 minutes of that call. We do have all of the calls we take from Entrants. They're all recorded. We only publish the ones that are on the scheduled weekly call, but there is some very interesting things there with Susie's stuff and even the other entrants, and maybe later on we will put that into a package and share it with people in the context of it's sometimes good to live these moments, because if it ever happens to you, you can feel a bit more, hey, I understand what's going on, and there's lessons to be learned everywhere. Some of you may have saw or already seen the post that I put up about the idea of why. Some people will question why. I won't go into it now because we could talk about it for hours, but certainly GGR continues, and we're all learning as an organiser. I know sailors all over the world are learning about everything that's happening, and Sir Robert Knox-Johnson is following the race, as you all know. We talk regularly and often, and we decided, or he decided, talking with the things that a review was needed as well, and so he's taken it on to do that review of everything that's going on. We hadn't announced it publicly before because we didn't. It wasn't relevant at the time, but we think now we should tell people what's going on. Certainly, we'll look forward to the results of all those surveys. Sir Robin will be talking to all the entrants about storm tactics, what they did, what sort of rigs they had, all those things, and we'll be offering as much help as we can, and we'll end up with a comprehensive document at the end of the race, which will be, and it already is, greatly anticipated. So there's just so many things to what's going on. It's really quite amazing, and bottom line is, yes, we're all surprised. I was as surprised as anyone that Susie went down in this storm and lost her rig. There's some of these questions here will answer some of the issues there, and certainly the whole issue of warps and drogues and all those things come up, and I think there's quite a few surprises there. Everyone has their own opinion, and the bottom line is there's no right and wrong in this. Every boat's different. Every sailor and skipper's opinion of their boat and what they can and can't do in a storm is different. Every storm is different. So there is no set matrix. There's no set fix of yes, you can do this and you can do that. It depends on you, the sailor, at the time, what you think is best for you. So just remember that, and I'm certainly going to give you my personal opinions, and even the way I answer these questions is what I feel based on my own experience, and it's not necessarily right or wrong. It's just for me, and I know people are interested. So okay, a question here from Nick Fleming, just about boats, the style of boats in GGR. Would it be better if they were faster, and should there be better weather reporting, and how do I explain this one? And are the, it's a bit like a lottery at the moment, because we're out there in small boats and there's storms, and we've now quite a few entrants have retired from the race. And I've got to point out a simple statistic. There is now only 4 entrants in the GGR that have been forced out of the race. Okay. When someone breaks a bit of equipment and they retire, that's not being forced out. That's you can put it down to bad planning, bad preparation, bad choice of equipment, call it what you like. But if someone decides it's too tough, that's their choice. They're out of the race. Those that have been forcibly retired is RA, when he lost his rig. Tommy when he was injured. Okay, Gregor is a grey area, because if the rescuers hadn't been there for Tommy, Gregor probably would have been sailing under jury rig to Australia. So we call that an evacuation. So I wouldn't say he was forced out. He made a conscious seaman-like decision to take a lift home. Then there was Loic. He was forced out, broken rigging, gone. And then there was Susie, who's been forced out through loss of the rig and so on. So everyone else is retired through basically, we'd call it not a forcible arrangement. It's something that's happened. So anyway, if you went around the world in an event like this in a 60-footer that can avoid the storms and can do all this, sure, it might be safer, okay, because of all those features. And if you've got weather routing and you've got all those things, yes, it's probably safer. But so is the idea of going around in a supertanker. That's really safe. Or even a passenger ship. That's really safe. Is it unsafe to go around in a GGR boat that's small, safe, strong, and so on? It might not be the safest as a supertanker, but it's realistically acceptable, in my opinion, if you've done everything you can to minimise your risk. You shouldn't be stopped from going to sea in a small, simple boat, using basic techniques to get around. So there's always bigger and better and so on, but how many people have got $1 million? Why shouldn't you be able to sail around the world if you only got $100,000 or $50,000? That's some of the essence of that question, and there's never a right and wrong to that. But the short story is, yes, there are safer boats. You could go in a passenger ship. Simple as that. Or a huge mega yacht. That's safer than a littler boat, right? But that's where the question lies, and there's no simple answer. Okay, so quite a few people were wondering about the scuttled boats and how do I feel in terms of the environmental sense. People think we're trashing the ocean because we've had to scuttle a few boats. The short story is they're accidents. They were never planned. They were never intended. Every GGR entrant is passionately aware of the environment. They're upset that they've had to let the boat sink with maybe 100 litres of diesel in it and all the other stuff associated with the boat that's now going to be drifting in the ocean or down deep and polluting and so on. But it's never intended. So it's a bit of a, to my way of thinking, a bit of a pointless argument. And and someone even asked, are we going to make preparations for that next time? No, we're not. You can't have someone there that's going to come along and pick up the abandoned boats. It doesn't work like that. It was never an intention, never a plan, but we're all very passionate about keeping the oceans clean. But unfortunately, sometimes accidents happen. So it is unfortunate, it's regrettable, but there's not a lot you can do about it if you think about it objectively. Matthew Boulanger was asking about the medical situation and the health, the way the entrants are looking after their health on board. And obviously they've got vitamin pills, maybe they're trying to eat the best foods they can. If they've got a pre-existing illness or something, they'll be taking special drugs for that, which are outside the standard GGR medical kit. And one part to that was they're not young anymore, So well, that's right. But if they need some special medicine, they'll take it. Our first aid kits are put together by MSOS in the UK, our 24-hour telemedicine group. They're very comprehensive. They meet all the standards around the world. They meet FFV requirement. They meet World Sailing Standard for Category O. They meet everything you need. They meet the Vendée Globe requirement. They meet IMO basically for no, that's not quite right because it's not an equivalent standard for one person. But they're very comprehensive, and we're confident that there's everything in their kits they need. They've got all sorts of things for every conceivable issue. It doesn't matter what it is. Stephen Penel Luna, how many have had sail problems in the race? Virtually not many. Mark Slatch just blew up a stay sail. There's been a few rip spinnakers and things like that. But the question about mainsails, for instance, I always thought you'd have two, but now I've got to say, like Jean-Luc only took one. A lot of them haven't taken two mainsails. There's virtually no mainsail that I know of that's blown up. So maybe one mainsail is good to go around. The sails nowadays are getting really good. The material is really good. The manufacturer, they know how to do it. So generally, there's been very, very low sail failure. The other one was there's been a lot of halyard failures. I don't know whether there's been a lot, there's been some. And the question was, is that normal? Well, I would have to say normal wear and tear is, but they still shouldn't break. And when I saw some halyards breaking in the first month of the Atlantic, I thought, they've got a problem. If you're going to lose it there, it's not going to last. It's going to keep happening. It means there's chafe somewhere, and chafe is the biggest problem. So that's not normal. A halyard should be good for a long way around the world, because if it's just a rope that's clear going over a sheave, it's not going to wear a lot. You can end friend it, or you can cut a little bit off every time, reattach it to your sail, so the area that's working compared to the area that's just running down the mast changes. You change that spot. So there's ways around it. So I don't know. I don't think Jean-Luc's broken any halyards. So I keep referring back to him because I know him and know the boat. I'm not sure about Mark Sinclair. So generally you're not meant to be breaking halyards. They can wear out, but even that's unusual. Colin Goodall, Susie's Jordan drogue. Can you, because she was running a drogue on this one, can you adjust it, make it more or less drag and so on? And should it be secured by 2 lines? First of all, I've never used a Jordan drogue, series drogue or anything like that. I understand the principles and how it works. It's like a long rope with all these little pockets on it, and I believe one of the ways that you can increase and decrease drag is just by putting more or less in the water, because the more pockets you've got in the water, the more drag, the less pockets, less drag. And should it be secured by 2 lines? Well, I know most people running a drogue will run a bridle off the back of the boat from each side, comes to a central point, and you run your drogue off of that. And that's exactly what Susie had. I remember distinctly Gregor at the start in drifting conditions. He's got his bridle already set up, massive rope, ready to take it with chain plates on there. Susie had the chain plates at the back, like running bolted horizontal to the waterline to accept big shackles and get it through. So you do get a bit of an adjustment there, that goes on. And he was asking, are warps adjustable? Yes, warps are simply adjustable, because warp is just a rope off the back of the boat going out and around, coming back the other side. And it's the same thing. The more length you have out, the more resistance you have, the more drag, and so on. So now I'll just bring it up here. Like when Susie had her problems, she's unsure exactly what happened here because she was down below, but she had the series drogue set. Now when all the drama was over and she went end for end, she pitch poled, the stern came over the bow, okay, and when she cleared everything, the drogue is now not there. Now it may be in the extreme pressure of the whip, maybe something overloaded and it broke the rope of the drogue, I'm not sure. Maybe when it went over, something cut it, right? We don't know, it's not sure. I haven't spoken to her about it after we had this relaxed discussion at the time, and she was going to investigate that, so she might have more information for later on that. But there's an interesting point here, and if you've got your drogue out a long way and you're creating a lot of drag, there's 2 ways you can get a pitch pole. One is that obviously you go screaming down the wave really fast, you go down, 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 here's the water, and you go bang, the bow goes into the water and the stern trips over and you go over like that, okay? I think that's the way most people conceive that a pitch pole would happen. There is another way, okay? And this is just by way of an example. I'm not saying it happens all the time, but it can happen. If you're going so slow, right, that a big wave comes up, it can lift the stern of the boat up. Now, you're not rocketing forward, like surfing forward. You've actually slowed down too slow. And the bow can then just get heavy and drop into this, or like that, because the stern is being pulled back. And then the wave comes along and just pitch poles you anyway. Right? Now, I was trying to explain that. Everyone seems to think there's this magic answer, and I'm so amazed that so many people have listened to the advertising and the research to say that you just got to have a series drogue and put it out, go below, have a smoke, have a coffee, and it's all over. It's not like that. You get rogue waves, you get 2 wave patterns, you get all the rest of it. And this is what I come back to, that there is no simple answer, right? It depends on the storm, it depends on the boat, it depends on the skipper's interpretation. And I'm not saying that there is no application for drogues, and I'm not saying I don't like series drogues. What I'm saying is to try and get people to think smart, don't believe the advertising. It's no simple fix, right? So that's the big thing I'm saying. It's really, the ocean is very demanding, very tricky. Every situation is different, and thinking people are the ones that are going to survive. And I know, can't wait to get some long talks with Mark. He's done a lot of playing around and looking at things. Same with Jean-Luc. When we get back, there'll be some very interesting discussions on what happened to him and what his opinions are and so on. So you can have a fast pitch pole and you can have a slow pitch pole. It's really quite interesting. And Susie will also have some interesting stories to tell as well. So there's a lot coming out of the GGR. Erwin Simons was asking, is it possible to take the Rustler 36 on deck in relation to the rescue ship that came for Susie? Had 4 big cranes, maybe they could have picked it up and put it on. It's not the deal. When you are in distress, the whole effort is to save people, not property. And no one wants to go through the effort in trying conditions to try and salvage property because that adds extra risk and time and expense and so on. So no, there's no question. Once you set an EPIRB off, you're going to lose your boat. Simple as that. Donna Lee was asking about, this is a classic. Donna Lee, will Susie's parents ground her now and let her relax? She's been a very naughty girl. So maybe, but I don't think so. Susie's pretty much a strong individual and an amazing woman, and I'm not sure whether that was a serious question or a fun question. I think it was a bit of fun. Certainly I know her parents would be incredibly relieved the way everything worked, and very proud of Susie as well, the way she handled herself all the way through from day one, the time she's entered the race, all the things that she's done, the way she's sort of carried out her whole passage plan, and racing in the GGR, and then the way she handled herself in this extreme situation and having lost her mast. They should be very proud. She's done a great job. So, okay, Dem U. I've gone through that one about, was asking about will a drogue stop a pitch pole. Certainly that again, just to refer to that, if you've got a drogue, you're going to slow yourself down, and if it's middle of the road, it's meant to assist with lowering the risk of a pitch pole. But as I've just explained, you can have a slow one or a fast one. So, and certainly the other issue here is that just remembering, and in fact, I'll give you one of my pet theories, and this will come up later on. If you look at what happened to Robert Knox Johnson in Sue Haley in his voyage around the world, he has this tiny little handkerchief like storm sail. And the idea was he'd set his drogues, but he'd also have this little sail right up the front of the boat, little tiny ones, like half the size of a storm jib, strapped tight in the centre of the boat. And the idea of that is if the wind's coming down here and you have this little pockets handkerchief tie sail at the front, if the boat starts to go down a wave and come this way, the wind will hit that and just push the bow around. Okay, and if it goes this way, it'll push the bow back the other way. So you've got like a sail-assisted weather vane at the front of the boat with the wind screaming down. So that bit of sail is helping it. So you've got the drogue slowing the boat down and keeping resistance, pulling the boat to the stern to stop it broaching. Okay, so they're two things that help it go straight down a wave. Susie broke her safety coupling on the monitor wind vane. She then effectively had no steering unless she sat on the tiller to hand steer, and she wasn't going to do that forever. She's done it before, in that previous storm back on the Indian side, and so she dropped the main, all that sort of stuff, put the drogue out, and that keeps the stern there, and she could lash the helm and keep going. But certainly a little sail will help at the front as well. But I don't know what she had. I think she might have had a storm jib out there and so on. So so there's a combination of things there. If you can keep sailing the boat with your wind vane, that decreases a lot of things as well. And she was very happy with her sailing before that wind vane broke. So I might have lost my train of thought there. But anyway, there's quite a lot of different issues to stay safe in big storms. Okay, Jarrett Lou, how many entrants carry helmets? I've got no idea. I know some do, and I carried a helmet when I went around the world, and I used it, and it did stop my head on one occasion from getting a big bang. But on the occasion that I was rolled over, okay, I did a 360, I wasn't wearing my helmet. I was quite surprised. I was down below, it wasn't too bad. Next minute, bang, I'm upside down. I thought I was in my chair, so I didn't go. I went to the side first and rolled around the cabin top. But I wasn't wearing my helmet when that happened. So you can have helmets, but do you live in it all the time? Because it's unexpected when you go down. And I don't know. We'll find out at the end of the race. Maybe we'll do a big survey and see who had them and who's wearing them. Okay, Margaret Keys. How does GGR assess the mental health of entrants? Well, before the race, we don't. We figure we're not after that side of it. During the race, we obviously take particular attention to how the entrants are going on their phone calls. I listen to them. They'll make other phone calls that you don't hear about every now and then, safety calls, and sometimes we might get a bit concerned, but we just assess that. We don't have psychologists involved. I've been involved with dealing with people for a long, long time on stressful expeditions, and you get a gut feeling, but nothing special, and we're not concerned about anyone at the moment, and sort of haven't really been either. We've seen people get depressed and get down, really struggling physically and psychologically, I suppose, with the race, but that's part of the challenge. We don't see that as a problem. It's just the challenge of coping psychologically and mentally with the whole drag of the race and facing the storms and the deprivations and lack of communications, things like that. That's what this race is. You're going to hear some incredible stories when this is over from the people that are currently involved with the race, and that's not a problem. They can cope. It's not easy. It's not pretty. Sometimes it's quite ugly, but that's what this is, it's part of what the GGR is. Phil Fairbrother. About me, another question. Must have been tense days within GGR and others as well. How do we relax? I thought about this, and last time I said, I used to go and do other things. You don't get time to relax, but I've got to say, when all this is happening, it is intense. You're emotionally connected to the people that are involved, and that's quite hard sometimes. But you have to try and divorce yourself from that. You've got a job to do. You just get on with it. You don't get to relax because 24 hours a day. Once you get an EPIRB alert, until it's all over, like now, I didn't really relax. Jane and I didn't relax until yesterday when she's picked up. As soon as she's picked up, it's like, whew, okay, we can get some sleep now. And you have a quick look at the rest of the fleet. There's no storms anywhere, and you sort of think, yes, So then you just slow down, I suppose. But when it's on, it's on. You can't stop thinking about them. It's the same as all the followers of the GGR. Like I see the messages that come through, and everyone's thinking and wondering. They go to bed that night thinking, oh, poor Susie, what's going on? And that's human nature. That's what it is. And so during those times, you don't relax. It's not over stressful. It's part of the game, and I say game in the sense of that's what this event is, and we're living an adventure. Jane and I live this as an adventure every day, and it has an unknown outcome. So you just never know what's going to happen, and you don't have to relax. You're absorbed. You're focused on what's going on. So that's fine. Sorry?
They ask you spare time.
Oh, my spare time. Oh, Jane's giving me directions here now. Spare time, I don't know. It's all about GGR. I'm dreaming about my Joshua class boat for the next one. I just want to get out there and face this stuff again. I see, so for me, I'm really hoping I get to do this race in 22. That's my passion at the moment. And I know it's not going to be easy for a few reasons. But anyway, that's where I want to be. So at the moment, my relaxation and spare time, if I get any, is thinking about GGR 22. So for lots of reasons. Anyway. Andy Taylor, should the event be in more modern style boats? Now this isn't about fast or slow. This is talking about modern style boats. And we've had lots of knockdowns, and and there's a high attrition rate, so on. When I did the BOC, it was a modern boat, fin keeler, big bulb on the bottom, 50 foot long, really fast, planing boat, big rig, all that stuff. I was knocked down, and I've lost one leg in the Southern Ocean was 7 knockdowns, the other one was 11, and I can't remember which is which, and one 360 rollover. It happens, We picked up a guy when I was on the ship. We rescued a guy called Alan Delord in a 37 foot really modern boat. His boat was trashed. He lost a lot. Ended up in a life raft for 4 days. I think the important part is to have seaworthy boats, and I firmly believe that the boats we've got now are right for this race. They're seaworthy. So, I'm happy with the way the GGR is with the boats we've got. Dave Morgan, would we allow weather routing in 2022? No, we won't, because weather routing would mean computers, and it would mean probably satellite communications, and that goes against the ethos of what the GGR is. That doesn't change the safety factor. We monitor and overview the storms and so on. We try and direct entrance away from anything over about 40 knots. So we've got their back, if you know what I mean. It might not be perfect, but some of them you just can't miss. I mean, Susie's, did you see the size of it? It was a massive physical size, nearly 1,000 miles across. It affected Istvan, all the rest of it. And they form up differently. We couldn't predict exactly where that was going to go with Susie this time. So even if you've got a weather routing program, it may not be right. But anyway, some entrants would lose race in the philosophy and the concept of the GGR if you allow all this stuff. So I'm happy with the way it is. And in fact, it'll go backwards a little bit, because next time we're not going to allow access to Windy TY, Predict Wind, all those sophisticated weather programming. So we're going to go back to basic forecasting, that was issued by government weather bureaus around the world, the IMO and SOLAS type weather forecasting only. And that, in my mind, with the organisation having a cover for storms is okay. Okay, Davil Gavitt. I can't work that one out. Okay, Stuart McEwen, retired entrants. How do they get home? Does GGR pay for them to get home, or do they have to hitch a ride? Well, I can tell you now, GGR doesn't pay for them to get home because GGR are Jane and I, and we have to pay for everything else. And entrants are responsible for their own destiny, you might say. So once they get on a ship, it's up to them to get their own way home, and I'm sure they're not too worried about that. So yeah, and some of in fact we had Loic's team were asking when Loic was on the ship, asked the same question: would we be paying for his fees on the ship, daily per diem and stuff, and getting his airfare home? We said nope, and because they'd been trying to ask their insurance company to pay it, but insurance companies don't pay it either. So that's one of those things, it's part of the challenge. Robert Nesbitt, are boats insured, and will they get paid out for their boats, and will it cover the cost of rescue? There's a couple of questions there. Some are insured, some aren't. Some are insured to wind strengths to a certain level. Some are insured for unlimited wind strengths, and some are insured to cover the rigs as well. So you'd have to ask individual entrants the type of policy. So all I could say is they're all insured for third-party insurance, like liability insurance. That's mandatory. But comprehensive insurance, I'd say probably 50% are insured and 50% aren't. Does it cover the cost of rescue? There's a popular misconception on this. It is impossible to buy rescue insurance, and there's a very simple answer for that. A rescue does not cost the person who's been rescued. It's an international convention, and the way it works is that the whole world is split up into designated areas for the nations who have signed on to the SOLAS agreement, which is the safety of life at sea. And in the case of Australia, for instance, has a massive area in the Southern Ocean. The government has agreed to sign that declaration. It means they will do their best, the best they can, to rescue anyone in those areas free of charge, okay? And so the government doesn't charge for a rescue. And any other mariner that's at sea, if they're able to assist in a rescue without putting themselves in risk or putting their own boats in risk, there is a moral and a legal obligation to assist. But again, they can't charge for that either. It's the law of the sea. So when someone is actually rescued, no one is given a bill. So if you're not given a bill, how can an insurance company take money from you to pay for your rescue? Because it costs nothing. And then it goes into a next question as into, well, is that right or is that wrong? And well, who compensates the company or the ship that went there? No one. And so, there's all sorts of arguments there. I've written about it before. It's a complicated discussion. There's lots of grey areas. But remember this, if someone can't afford to rescue you, you will not be rescued. And so it's as simple as that. But what's the price of humanity? What's the price of a human life? Certainly if I was out there and someone was troubled, I'd do the best I can without risking my life to save them, okay? And that's inherent, and that's called human nature and humanity. So it's a very tricky question, but you cannot buy rescue insurance. That's simple as that. You go and try. You can't do it. Anyway, and it's not to say the key issue here is that you've got to be responsible. You can't go out there and do stupid things over and over again. And every one of our entrants is very responsible. They've done everything they can to minimise risk. Personally, I have a very simple standard. If I ever had to be rescued, and I haven't in all my various adventures all over the world, in the air and land and sea, I need to look my rescuer in the eye and say that I've done everything possible I can to make sure I didn't get in this position. And if I did, I've done everything possible I can to help you get to me with minimum risk. So it's an interesting story. Huge issue to discuss at any time. Justin Porter, Master Strategies. Okay. What did the master of the ship do in a strategy to recover Susie? Well, as I've mentioned in that big live before, the only thing that changed, it was quite a big thing, was that Susie had no motor. So she was sitting stationary with about an 8 or 9 metre underwater parachute anchor. It's like a parachute, a big sea anchor, parachute sea anchor, on 100 metres of line, holding her boat steady. The cranes were on the port side of the ship, so I'm imagining the ship has actually come down. If Susie's here, this is the ship coming down port side, Susie's basically stationary. The master of the ship has done an amazing job, and I can't wait to find out and see if there's pictures and videos and stuff, to position this 40,000 tonne ship coming along with the crane and stop it as best he can right over where Susie is. The crane driver's there moving the boom, the hook's there, Susie's waiting, grabs the hooks, clips on, and boom, they pick her up and gone. So it was really quite something, and we know nothing about the final moments of all that. We just know what the plan was, and as soon as we find out, we'll let you know. So, but it was an amazing job by the master and the crew. Okay, so Jared Morgan, the storm strategies, and okay, Joe, I'm just talking about the review that Robert Knox Johnson is doing on the whole of the issues here. And remember this, a lot of people don't know this. Suhaili went all the way around the world in the original Golden Globe race and survived. Many years later, he was coming back across the Atlantic after having done a trip across initially on I think it was a navigation trip, I'm not sure. And he was in Suhaili. In a storm, he was rolled over and dismasted on Suhaili. So it can happen to anyone at any time, And so Robin's in a very good position with a lifetime of incredible experience to assess this information and give his very valued opinions on that. So stand by for that report. Tom Hoff, how do I think the race and the organisation's going so far, like as in the event? Well, bottom line is, I think it's going really well. I think we're achieving all the things that Jane and I ever set out to achieve. We've had a lot of help and so on. The organisation has been good. What I would say, if we had more money, it would be a lot better. and I'm saying that in the context that Jane and I, we basically this race is costing us about half of everything we own. We didn't get the sponsors. We were so lucky to get the support of the Sable agglomeration and provide all of the logistics and the race village and marinas and our office space and phones and stuff like that. And our smaller partners that have helped us, Mercedes and Mercedes Saga, and as you've seen on the website there. But basically, we didn't get a sponsor, and so our media man is one guy, Barry Pickthall. We pay Barry; he's the only one that we can afford to pay. And Jane and I are the only full-time employees at the moment. We're the only ones working, or full-time people. We've got Christoph and Celine. That's it. We've got Caroline doing the media. We're just frantic sometimes trying to keep it all together, and that's encouraging, because if we can do what we've done so far with what we've got now, if in 22 we get the funding we hope to get, it can be a lot bigger and a lot better and inspire a lot more people and be an even bigger event. So we've got our fingers crossed. But generally it's okay. And the other one was, did I expect so many dropouts? Well, the bottom line is, I was saying from the very beginning, well, I hope about half of the boats finish, but I wouldn't be surprised if about a third got to the finish line. We're down to effectively 5 in the GGR class and 2 Chichesters, so it's tight, and so I'm just surprised, but we're still there, and we're hoping everyone stays safe and gets to the finish line now, so that'll be good. Martin Chickanek, how often was I in touch with Susie during this drama? From the time we got the first contact, it was a balancing act. We asked for her to maintain contact with phone calls in the initially bit. Then we let her relax and just say, you call us when you're ready, but let's do tweets, satellite tweets. So we were in close contact all the way through. She could ring us at any time, and the management, I believe, went really well. We had quite a few phone calls and quite a few tweets, and she was fortunately, she was in touch with her family as well, and it was a tough time. And you'll find out about that whole sequence. It'll be, we'll write about it and so on, and it worked well. Susie did a great job. Jean-Luc, Deborah Cushing was asking about Jean-Luc on his SoundCloud, was asking whether, if there was no effect to his position in the race, whether we'd let him not do the time penalty because he doesn't want to turn around if the weather's wrong. We haven't told him yet the findings of that, which we will do probably tomorrow. But yeah, the time penalties are time penalties. No matter who it is and what's got to be done, you have to do it, because even if you might be, it's not going to affect your position 18 hours, the thing is you could turn around and then all of a sudden you blow out your mainsail. Because you had to turn around, and because you blow out your mainsail, all of a sudden it's going to cost you a week to get back to the finish line. That's what the challenge is. It's not just a time piece, not just a time thing. It's achieving the course. And if you have a time penalty, you have to turn around and come back and stay down here for 18 hours and then come back. If something breaks on the boat in that 18 hours, that's part of the challenge. So I don't think we'll be changing anything for Jean-Luc's time penalty. Ian Hewitt, we've got 2 more questions, 3. Ian Hewitt, any comments on the wind vanes breaking too early? Wow. This is a powerful question. My comments on the wind vanes breaking too early is very simple, and this is a personal comment. It's got nothing to do with anything else. It's my Don McIntyre's personal comments. I would never ever sail in the GGR with anything other than an Aries or a hydrovane. That's probably all I should say. Okay, Jamie Bowen. Rogue waves. Is it like, there's rogue waves around? Is the GGR becoming like rolling a dice? Quite possibly. It always has been. When you go to sea, there's rogue waves in the Southern Ocean. There's rogue waves anyway. You need to make sure your boat and everything about your preparation and your own experience and skill is able to cope with the worst storm you can imagine. If you're not able to do that, don't go to sea. That's my advice. So sure, the GGR is rolling the dice. There's a lot of storms down there, and all the entrants know that, and they're preparing, and they're as prepared as they ever possibly can be. One last one from Tony Johnson. Anything that I know about entrants having hallucinations and so on, or any of my experience with hallucinations, I haven't heard anyone talking about hallucinations. I haven't actually heard of anyone saying they're really desperately exhausted type without sleep. Certainly some of them are not getting sleep for days and days, and they're talking about, wow, I'm looking forward to my next one, but nothing heard so far. I've never had any hallucinations at sea. I've certainly had some very vivid dreams when you start to get short of sleep, but I call them dreams, not hallucinations, when you're conscious and think you're seeing pink men or whatever, or seeing land. So that's about it. Quite an eventful week. Hopefully next week will be a lot quieter, and we can get back into the racing. There's still quite a long way to go, and it's certainly turning into an incredible challenge. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you on Monday morning for another tracker update, and hopefully our tracker will be online and I can do one shortly. Thanks a lot.